Okay, right here basically we see the Great Valley. Now these mountains were a ridge that ran along all the way to Lancaster. And Washington moved his army during the Battle of Brandywine, the Battle of Paoli, and Germantown through the Lancaster Pike. Now basically it was easy to move along the Great Valley here. It was flat. It was a plateau between two mountains. Valley Forge here is probably most likely the end of the ridge. It most likely maybe keeps going on to about Conshohocken. Now here we're about 500, maybe 600 feet above sea level. You can see for miles in any direction. Now if you see off to the camera over here, you'll notice that these are fields are exactly what they would have looked like back then. This is where Washington's army would have trained, where they would have practiced, right out in this field in this direction. Now, as you see off to my, if you look down this line where the road is, or the trail, you'll notice that there's nothing here. Now, during this time, there would have been huts. They would have been all over this general area. They would have been as far as the eye can see. Now, in this area, basically it was muddy. There was a lot of wagons. There was people walking in the area. It would have been, as you see, if you ever saw the movie The Revolution with Al Pacino, that's what this would have looked like. That was the best representation of Valley Forge. There was be pickets. A picket is a bunch of men that stand in one area, and they were scouts. They would scout and make sure that the British weren't watching them. Now, there would be different pickets in different areas. There would be a redoubt. Now, a redoubt is an area that's higher than the above ground. They would basically take baskets of sticks, and they wound them up like a basket, and they would put them into the ground, and they would put dirt around these. Now, a redoubt was high up. They'd have their guns there. They'd have different men. They would take different shifts. Usually, a redoubt or a picket, they were stationed there for 8 hours. They wanted the troops fresh. They didn't want them tired. They didn't want them going to bed. So basically, they would change shifts every 3 or 4 hours. Now, what you see behind me, if it was computer generated, you would see all these huts as far as the eye can see, but they wouldn't be in the middle there. They would be in a small area in an encampment. It would have been up this road. Now, during this time, a Prussian general came into camp. He came in, he was found, Benjamin Franklin, when he was in France, was recruiting different people for the American cause. He found a Prussian general. They didn't know too much about him, but Franklin said he was a good guy, and anything that Ben Franklin said was okay. So von Steuben came over here, and he arrived in the camp, and he couldn't speak a word of English. Now, what this meant was usually he cursed in German. Nobody knew what he was saying. But basically, during this time, he put our American army, he whipped them into shape. Now, Prussian tactics at the time were probably the best tactics in the world. The Prussian army was the best. They had the best military. Now, the circumstances for von Steuben's they don't know too much about him, but I'll tell you one thing, he did very well here, even though he might have had a court-martial in Prussia. Now, von Steuben himself was an interesting man. If you think about somebody cursing every 5 minutes, that's what he did, but he cursed in a different language. They didn't know what he was saying. But what he would do is he would take 100 men. He would take the most healthiest 100 men in a division, basically Maine, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Pennsylvania. He would take the best out of every regiment and train 100 men. Now, what these 100 men were supposed to do after they were trained is they were going to train another 100 men. So basically, von Steuben's tactics were all over. So these 100 men would train another 100 men. So it actually quadrupled, it doubled, it kept going up and up. So basically, the whole military at that time was being trained by 100 men. Now, if you come into Valley Forge today, you'll see the visitor center. Now, on the side of the visitor center, there's a painting. I forget who it's by, but it shows von Steuben pointing to the troops that are kneeling, and some of the troops are standing. This is the best representation of what his tactics were, how this encampment looked like. So if you ever see that, that's probably the best representation of von Steuben himself. Now he was a different guy. He practiced musket fire with these individuals. He made them take their flints out of their guns and put wood. Now what the wood did is they could actually fire the gun without damaging the gun or damaging flints. He knew how to form an army. He knew how to run. He knew how to hit. Now a lot of these Continentals during this time, they didn't have bayonets. They didn't know how to fight with bayonets. Now the British at the time were the best army on the planet. They had the best weapons, they had the best swords, they had the best artillery. Now during this time, I guess there were some Brown Bess muskets that were taken from Trenton and a couple other battles. They had bayonets. Now 100 bayonet weapons and 100 non-bayonet weapons, you know, von Steuben would take these weapons and show the different individuals and the different Continentals how to use a bayonet, how to storm a position. Now, if you have 16 inches of steel coming at you, it's pretty damn scary. So the intimidation factor of the bayonet was far more than a ball coming out of a gun. Now, what we're going to look at now is we're going to take another look at a couple more huts in the general area. We're going to look at a smaller hut, a hut that was basically what we think of as Valley Forge. It's these large huts you see. It wasn't. They were smaller. They were different construction. Now, Washington at this time, he would have been stationed in his headquarters. Now, there's a house, generally. Now, Valley Forge itself was a forge. It was a forge that was burnt down by the British. The British burnt Valley Forge down before the encampment here. So the house that was there was the owner of the forge. Now, he went into his residence, probably Christmas Eve night. And basically, the family, I guess, moved away, and he was allowed to encamp in his house. Now, during this time, he got a lot of information. It was the winter time. A lot of people that were moving back and forth in this area, there was messengers. Like I said, Nathaniel Greene was, he was commissary. He brought provisions into camp. Everybody had to do a little job here. You couldn't just sit around and wait for the spring to come. There was a lot of things that needed to be done in Valley Forge. They had to maintain their privies, or their latrines had to be cleaned. Now, these latrines, like I was saying, had to be far away. Now, if you defecate or go to the bathroom outside of your cabin, that's going to leach in. It's going to cause disease. It's going to have a lot of factors against you. So basically, they had to dig latrines. They had to do guard duty here. There was a lot of different things. The soldiers just didn't sit around like you see in magazines and just get snowed on. There was a lot of activity here. Now, I was saying that Benjamin Franklin said that they look like beavers in this area. They were cutting trees. They had to go about 5 miles away to get logs. They needed firewood. They needed provisions. It just wasn't a camp where they sat down and just waited for the spring. Now I'm going to go up under the road, and there's a cabin that I really think that emphasizes Valley Forge itself. It's about the same size that an average soldier would have had, and about 12 men would have stayed in this small tent.